The Sustainable Fashion, Rationale and Policies deals with one of the hottest fields topic in the world today, sustainable fashion. That is, in a nutshell, fashion which refers to efforts made to minimize the fashion industry's adverse environmental and social impacts. Reading the introduction provides three central questions. What is sustainable fashion? Why is it needed? And what policies and regulations exist to promote it? Sustainable fashion, sometimes known as slow fashion or ethical fashion, is a form of fashion that attempts to be an alternative to the fast fashion industry, an industry that represents a heavy environmental burden and negative social consequences. Under the category of slow and sustainable fashion, it is customary to summarize a wide range of solutions in the field of fashion, including second-hand clothes, independent designers, fashion produced in small quantities, clothes made from more sustainable materials, upcycled clothes, meaning clothes made from textile scraps and old fabrics such as curtains and bedding, clothes that have become obsolete, and so forth. However, the most effective way to reduce the environmental and social effects of the fashion industry is to adopt consumption patterns that advocate a general reduction in purchases. In fact, a recent study conducted by the Hot or Cool Institute found that in order to meet the goal of stopping global temperatures from rising by over 1.5 degrees, as stated in the goals of the Paris Agreement, the number of clothes that can be purchased per year is 5. Meanwhile, the average consumer in the West purchases 68 fashion items each year. Here, we risk putting the cart before the horse. In order to understand the importance of sustainable fashion as an alternative to the fast fashion industry, we must first understand what fast fashion is and what its consequences are. Fast fashion is mass, uniform, and global fashion produced by corporations, a process through which the pace of trend reversal is extremely fast, in the same manner as fast food chains. Prominent examples of fast fashion corporations include H&M, Zara, Uniqlo, Topshop, Primark, and Shine. The profit models of these companies rely on slashing production costs along with working to achieve as wide and fast of a distribution capacity as possible. Many times, this is at the expense of workers' rights and results in contamination of the environment. In fact, the fast fashion industry is now considered one of the most polluting and exploitative industries in the world. The fashion industry is currently considered the second most polluting industry on the planet. It is the industry responsible for wasting more than 98 million tons of non-renewable resources, including oil utilized in synthetic fiber production and massive fertilizer applications used to produce cotton. The industry emits 1.2 billion greenhouse gases per year, produces 20 to 35% of the microplastics found in the sea, and generates billions of tons of non-recyclable textile waste and 1.5 million tons of waste. It should be emphasized that the carbon emissions, water pollution, and soil destruction associated with the clothing industry, such as burying and burning clothes at the end of use, tend to occur in poor countries in the global south, while most clothes are purchased in the West. The fashion industry's balance sheet is also embedded in environmental injustice. While a typical Western consumer holds in their closet a prodigious amount of clothes, leading to the burning of a truck full of textile waste in the US alone every minute, 1 out of 5 workers in clothing production is under 9 years of age. The wages earned by the vast majority of people employed in clothing production are insufficient to feed their families. Given the increasing concern about the fashion industry's contribution to the climate crisis and its exploitative social dimensions, fast fashion constitutes an environmental, social challenge that requires a solution in the form of dedicated public policies and international regulations. Indeed, in recent years, decision-makers, politicians, and government officials worldwide have begun to promote sustainable fashion through public policy. Sustainable fashion policy includes laws and regulations for textile manufacturing and import industries and creating incentives for manufacturers to choose environmentally friendly manufacturing processes alongside ethical distribution and retail, more stringent global standards, and increasing consumer awareness through measures such as education, environmental labeling, campaigns, and choice architecture. Among the more significant interventions that have been passed in the last decade are the Due Diligence Guidance for Responsible Supply Chains in the Garment and Footwear Sector, published in 2017 by the OECD. Australia's modern slavery law requires companies with revenues above 100 million Australian dollars to publish an annual modern slavery statement, which details potential modern slavery risks and practices in their operations and supply chains. In France, as of 2019, fashion sellers and retailers are prohibited from throwing away, discarding, or incinerating unsold clothes. In New York State, in February 2021, a new regulation was enacted which stipulates that any business with more than 10% of its waste comprising textiles is obligated to send residuals for recycling. In September 2021, Senate Bill 62 was passed into the California state legislature. In New York State, at the beginning of 2022, Fashion Sustainability and Social Accountability Act legislation was passed, which became known as America's first fashion sustainability law. The statute stipulates that clothing companies with an annual revenue turnover greater than $100 million are required to expose the climatic and social impacts of their production methods and take action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The law also requires them to map at least 50% of their suppliers and to report the wages that their suppliers pay to production workers compared to the local minimum wage. Do you want to show your research progress to more scholars? Contribute an entry that will be linked to your paper on the Encyclopedia platform, providing an opportunity for over 35,000 scholars to access and explore your research. Have you ever tried to show your latest research in a vivid way? Encyclopedia's SciPlayer provides a service with which you can transfer your research to a live video format. Do you want to publish a new paper? Encyclopedia has an international, peer-reviewed, and open-access journal. Do you require a discount when you publish research in journals? Anyone who contributes to Encyclopedia can obtain vouchers for MDPI Journal's article processing charges. Encyclopedia aims to create an open-access knowledge-sharing platform for all scholars. To find more information, search for encyclopedia.pub.